Hey guys, thanks for bearing with me as I go live this afternoon. I wanted to get the second part of my Lyme story out to you and not delay any longer because I know you've been eagerly waiting for it, right? So, hey, if you are catching this on YouTube after the fact, I'm going to be posting it there as well. Please like and subscribe to get all the further goodies that I have to share, some of which are my story, my journey, other educational offerings and trainings, as well as just Thoughts with Adele, which I should probably just call it Thoughts with Adele, but my coffee chats where we can grab a cup of warming, delicious beverage and chat together. So, as I see you all hopping on, I just want to say hi, guys. Happy afternoon. Happy Monday at the time of this recording. And I'm excited to hop in to this story right away. We're going to pick up where we left off. So if you missed part one, you're going to want to catch that. Oh, I'm afraid my phone's going to fall. You're going to want to catch that from last week. I will also try to link it here for you. Hopefully I remember to do that. Just remind me if you see that I forgot. But I will link part one of my journey, and I'm going to I'm not going to even summarize all of part one. I'm going to kind of just, like I said, pick up right where I left off. Part one of my journey was life before Lyme literate treatment, basically. Me trying to navigate what was going wrong with me, what was up with my health, and trying to figure that out for most of my childhood into my early adult years. So basically, the summary of that is I ended up diagnosed with a ton of autoimmune conditions. The ones I can remember off the top of my head are chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, psoriatic arthritis specifically, but I had other weird arthritic symptoms that they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong with me. I had sacroiliac joint dysfunction, patellofemoral syndrome, Raynaud's phenomenon, migraines, vasovagal syndrome. Later, as I got older into adult years, I started heading down the path for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome diagnosis, and lupus diagnoses. Never officially got those diagnoses, but was getting tested for some of those things, and basically was told that I probably had them or was getting them or was going to get them. Anyway, whatever. I stopped the train in its tracks on those because it was just headed for more and more of a spiral, basically, if you can't tell, of autoimmune stuff. So never mind that, half the doctors I saw thought I had psych problems, and I did struggle psychologically with some of this, probably both due to Lyme and co-infections, which can mess with your mental health, and probably due to the actual battle against the medical system to get help that I wasn't getting. So that struggle is real for anyone that's experiencing that and maybe feels a little cuckoo crazy. You're not. It's legit. So all that to say, I was trying to get help in all these different places, seeing specialists, rheumatologists specifically at that point because infectious disease did nothing for me. Seeing psychiatric help as needed. And just trying to figure it out along the way. My story ended with me sharing how I had tried some alternative medicine and alternative therapies for my health out of desperation. This actually began while I was still in my parents' home, so under my parents' care, and my mom in particular, was also grasping at straws for me, and so she ended up taking me to some alternative therapy, like a homeopathist, and getting me myofascial release as a form of massage therapy. It's technically not, but body work, to try to help when we didn't know what was wrong with me. And those things actually did start to help, which was really cool. We didn't know exactly why, and we still didn't know that this was all probably related to, or at least most of it related to, Lyme disease and co-infections. But I did have my Lyme diagnosis at that point. So that's kind of to bring you up to speed. So I was trying these alternative therapies, most of which actually were helping. They kind of got me functional again, to the degree that I could look at going to college and think about a career and what did I want my life to look like in my adult years, which previously I hadn't even really been able to think about, because here I was quitting my whole life because I was so sick, and I kind of having to give up a lot of my life, my enjoyments in life. And now I'm starting to get better and think about okay, what could I have going forward? What could my future look like? So we still weren't getting to the root of the problem per se, but we were supporting my body to try to start to heal itself, and in some ways supporting my immune system and my gut health and all that. And that is important too. So even though we didn't get to the root cause, we were doing things that were helping. And it made sense now, and makes more sense even now looking back. So it's like I was starting to find the pieces of the puzzle at that time, as I was like in my later teenage years and starting to look at college age and stuff like that. We were starting to find healing pieces of the puzzle and put them together kind of slowly and haphazardly instead of in a systematic fashion to get a big picture in the end, right? So it's like we couldn't see the end result or even understand what the whole healing process would look like in the end, but we kind of were starting to see how, oh, certain pieces actually fit together and might actually go together. So it's like if you dumped like 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 puzzles in a pile and tried to like put them together individually, that's more what it was like if we're doing the puzzle analogy. So the autoimmune and like chronic disease, chronic illness picture existed for many more years before we did finally get the puzzle put together better. So I got through college. I actually went to nursing school. I got a job as an ICU nurse, which is what I wanted to do. So I was like, golly, I'm going to do it. And I did, and it was hard, but we'll talk about that. I got married, actually right before I even graduated college. Like I had a really great life starting to unfold, and married my high school sweetheart, which was super cool. Sorry, my windows are open and you're hearing potentially the outside noises. Sorry about that. That's why I do have earbuds in to try to help with that. But, like I said, I had a good life unfolding. It was hard still, but I managed. I don't even know exactly how. I just, I remember determining to myself that I just wanted to be normal again. Like I had spent so many years as a kid, like not feeling or being able to be a normal kid, that now that I was like a young adult, I just wanted a normal young adult life. I wanted that back. So I just kind of like resolved to make it happen. Now, yeah, sometimes I suffered for it a little bit, but in general, I was well enough that I kind of could fudge my way through life and enjoy it too, So despite lingering symptoms, I was doing it. I was doing normal adult life, kind of. I was adulting, as the kids say, so to speak. But I was working days, nights, rotating, because I was a new nurse, and that's what you do. You either work nights or day, night, rotating every couple weeks. I was working full time. It was an ICU setting, so it was really stressful. So work was like my biggest thing then, it was kind of like worked hard, played hard, right? But I kept seeing a rheumatologist because I felt like that was the only thing I could really be doing to help myself. My major symptoms were rheumatological, like aches and pains and arthritic stuff and, musculoskeletal stuff. I kind of like put my migraines and other things aside, or just figured that was normal life. P.S. not normal, by the way. But rheumatology even had no idea what to really do with me. So they were kind of like grasping at straws too. They would try different labs to kind of see if they could figure out what was going on, but they never could get to the bottom of anything, nor did they really see the Lyme thing as impressive to them or important to them, and that's okay. I didn't either, so I didn't push for it. I didn't advocate for myself in that way. They did try different meds to help, many of which helped to a degree, but again, it bothered me that they never were fixing anything, and I never knew exactly what was wrong other than these vague diagnoses. And I wanted more answers than that personally. I wasn't satisfied, but I didn't know what else to do. So I basically med hopped through different meds that pseudo helped until the side effects would get bad enough that I'd have to switch to another med or just go off of meds. And I just I kind of was getting fed up, and like enough was enough for me. So it just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't logical. Like we weren't getting anywhere. So I kind of just stopped going to rheumatology, cold turkey. I also, around this same time, I can't remember the exact perfect timeline, but basically within the same year or so of me kind of quitting rheumatology and not really having like a doctor managing my weird symptoms, I also got pregnant. I was about 23 years old. Well, I was 23 when I got pregnant. So all this was happening right around that age. So I was still really young. And at that time, I had also backed down to working only part-time and day shift. Thank you, Jesus. Because I started having problems with my cycle and just hormonal stuff. Like there was all kinds of wacky stuff going on. And again, like my OB practice and stuff and gyne and all that, they didn't really know what all was going on. But we were talking about wanting to get pregnant right around the time everything was going wacky. And I was like, I got to fix something. So I tried to adjust my job first because we were in a position that I could do that. And thank goodness my boss was so kind to be able to have, and allow me to apply for what was open part-time day shift, So I did get my hormones back under control, kind of basically through lifestyle changes in that way and kind of waiting it out. I didn't really do anything super special, but I also didn't put two and two together that Lyme could be also at play here. So we did get pregnant shortly after I made that change. I was working part-time day shift, a little bit better, a little bit less stressful. But around that same time, ironically, everything happens for a reason, through my husband's boss at the time, actually, who still are good friends of our family. And I'm really grateful to them for this information. They informed us about the documentary Under Our Skin about Lyme disease. My husband's boss and his wife were both seeking Lyme literate specialist care for Lyme and co-infections. And they were the only people I knew that were like taking it so seriously. And I immediately, my ears perked up and I was like, oh, maybe this is a thing. And they encouraged me to go down that path as well, thinking my problems could very well be explained, or most of them, my woes medically could be explained through this Lyme disease path. So being the nerdy type that I am, I jumped on this documentary and loved every minute of it. But I was shocked. I was like, I probably ended watching it looking like this because I was newly pregnant, just found all this mind-blowing information out about Lyme disease. It was one documentary. It led me down a rabbit trail of research, and seeking further information. I was just a glutton for the information I could get at the time. And my husband was completely on board with it. And it was so wonderful because the minute I said to him, I think I need to get help before we have this baby, because now I'm worried about how this is going to affect my baby. I didn't even think of that before. And he was like, yes, absolutely. Let's go to this Lyme specialist, or what we didn't know the term Lyme literate provider back then either. Let's go to this Lyme specialist that my boss and his wife are seeing. They give her a great review. That's all we know to do. So we did. That was the only Lyme literate provider we knew at the time, the only place we knew to go for help. I called her, actually on my break at work one day. I called her and told her what was going on, and she was like, get in here right now. I think she got me in that next week or something. What was really special and is really special about her, because I still see her to this day, actually, she is a nurse midwife as well. And she started her own birth center, and all this stuff too. But it made me really appreciate what she could offer me as a pregnant mom, wanting a family. And I ended up having 4 kids well under her treatment, breastfeeding them, having, uncomplicated pregnancies. I actually felt really good during my pregnancies. Thank goodness. A lot of people do, because your immune system changes when you're pregnant a little bit. And, I was really blessed by her care and by her consideration for our whole family's needs, but that's just a side note. I love my provider. So I'm not a fan of making fear-based decisions, but I gotta say in this case, knowledge with action was truly powerful for my treatment. I saw this documentary. I got scared. I made a phone call, but I took action on the knowledge I learned. That fear that we sometimes feel, or the nudge, the intuition that we sometimes feel, can be a catalyst for some major change if you're not afraid to take the steps. Sure, I was super afraid, but I didn't see another way. Sometimes when you don't have a plan B, you're really forced into some craziness that can actually be the biggest life-changing craziness you've ever experienced. So that was my case. Looking back, no regrets. In the moment, certainly felt like a scary undertaking to even think about affording a specialist, committing to specialist care, all this stuff. But we took it one day at a time, and here we are today. We made it work. You can too, I promise. And now we've made it work not only for me, but for my 3 kids so far that have Lyme and co-infections as well. And that's another story for another time, but side note, if you want to talk more about that, we can. Kiddos getting Lyme. Anyway, so my Lyme provider, let me talk about her really briefly, but I do want to share that I have a blog post all about like how to interview a Lyme literate provider to see if they will work well for you and your needs, because there's different strokes for different folks. You know, people have different needs and different wants out of a provider. And I'm a big fan about advocating for yourself and getting what you need, because it's your healthcare at the end of the day. And you are hiring this person to serve you. So all that to say, my Lyme provider has been wonderful. She, in my mind, this is what I like about her. She treats holistically, and I don't just mean naturally only or like with alternative therapies only. She does use a combination that looks at the whole person and what you individually need. She knows I prefer certain ways of treating, but she also is honest and upfront with me about what actually is working for me and my family. And so we're able to kind of compromise and collaborate very well. I wouldn't even call it a compromise. Actually, at the end of the day, I'm getting better and she's able to treat me effectively. So that to me is a collaboration, really. But she's very open to, things that we've decided to do as a family. Like, for example, I've added in some additional alternative therapies. Like, I've stuck with a lot of what I've done in the past, moved on from some other things. Like, I don't still see a homeopathist and stuff like that, although that was a great, like, stepping stone to my wellness. But I still use some of the things that he taught us to help me with my health. But I've added in some other alternative therapies that have been helpful in my healing process, such as essential oils and different supplements, chiropractic care that I wasn't getting as a kid. I still do myofascial release too, Zyto scanning to help kind of see where my body's at along the way. And I'm open with my provider, my Lyme provider, about all of this. And she is, on board, works with me in these things, is open to listening to my experiences and what I'm learning about it as we go. So she's still learning too in some ways, as she's still the expert able to treat me, which is cool. Another cool component of collaboration. My Lyme provider also works like in the same clinic space as a functional medicine provider that specializes in genetics and nutrition. So I did choose, she's like a separate provider. So she's a separate treatment course if you go that route as well. So while still seeing my Lyme literate provider, I also for a few years saw the functional medicine provider too. I would just get back-to-back appointments with them both and they would collaborate. They literally would meet up in between appointments and discuss the next steps. And it was really cool because the very specific things I think that helped me the most out of that, because we did a lot in a few years to fine-tune and tweak my health with the functional medicine provider too. The biggest things we did were looking at my genetics with someone that is an expert in genetics. She could read and analyze and assess every piece of my genetic code and all the little quirks to see what my body needed, didn't need, what we needed to tweak for even supplements and medications and stuff. It was very helpful that way. Also, she could address nutritional needs based on my genetics. That is her specialty. I love that, you guys. I'm super passionate about that particular field now that I've learned about it and experienced it. But then she also was able to very specifically hone in on my gut health and address that. And in getting my gut health and my genetics kind of figured out, I skyrocketed. I would say that supercharged my healing. My healing skyrocketed. I skyrocketed my wellness and well-being. It kind of gave me the boost to next level. And I have no regrets about that. In fact, I would actually like to go back and visit her again soonish in the next year or so, just to, again, fine tune. Just see where we're at since we did all that fine tuning previously, and then go next level again. So that's been a cool opportunity that I mention here, because that functional medicine provider is not a Lyme literate provider, but she's working with one and open to, what that world looks like, so that this collaboration again is this team on my side, getting to the bottom of things, truly for real, genetics, gut health, the bottom of things, and Lyme disease too on this part of all that picture as well. So I think that these tune-ups can be imperative if you have access to them, and that's just my side note and why I mention it, because some people I don't think would necessarily realize unless someone told them how good it could be. I didn't go to this functional medicine provider for so many years because it was just one more thing to do, and I kind of regret that more than I regret going to her. So just a thought, but it was so helpful. So now I am still seeing my Lyme provider. I have access to that functional medicine provider when needed, as needed, when I choose to go back. And I'm doing a combination of medication and herbals, trying to wean off of my antibiotics onto full herbals, which I've never successfully been able to do before, but I'm really close now. So I do have the recent Bartonella diagnosis that was kind of elusive for many years, that we finally like figured out what was going on. So that probably means I'm on that last antibiotic a little longer, but we'll see. So I'm doing a lot of herbals, a lot of supplements, maybe a shocking amount to some people, but it's what works for me, and I feel really good on them, and they're exactly what my body seems to be needing. So we're sticking with the plan for right now. Again, with the plan to like hopefully not have to be on that many for life, but you know, it's not the end of the world for me because I feel so good on them. I do Zyto scanning periodically through a holistic health coach. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's spelled ZYTO, and you can look it up. It just basically scans your body for its needs as they relate to like different therapies and modalities out there. So it's a very cool tool. It's actually a tool that's similar to how a lie detector test works, although it doesn't work to detect lies. It works to detect like the frequencies of your body and where healing and balancing is more needed compared to other areas. It's just a really cool tool. I'm glad to use in my healing journey. I'm seeing chiropractic care right now, myofascial release and massage work, which includes like some craniosacral, some lymphatic drainage, and other forms of body work. Highly recommend trying. I know not everything is for everyone, but for me, that's been like a game changer, doing the body work thing regularly. I do tons of detoxing, and I've also really beefed up my mindset work and my emotional and trauma healing, because with any long-term medical stuff comes baggage and some healing that needs to occur, whether you consider it traumatic, like emotional and traumatic healing or not. I've talked about that here before too, but there's a component there that needs to be dealt with one way or the other. So I've been working on that more. Of course, the other things that I do that can't be overlooked but sound simple and really aren't until you've mastered them. Things like stress reduction, proper and adequate sleep, and rest in general, nutritional healing and diet stuff. I still work hard on that. And exercise, body movement. Most recently, I've added Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into my repertoire. I'm loving it, but you have to find what works for you. And that I couldn't have always done that in my life. In fact, I had to give up athletics for a while. I used to be a major athlete, big into it, thought that was going to be my life. And I had to give all that up for a time, you know, to heal better. So you really do have to listen to your body on the movement component, but it has to be done to some degree, even if it's just stretching and walking and gentle exercising. So what I wanted to say, because I am so far into my healing journey that I feel like the end is near in terms of, I mean, are we really ever done healing and growing and learning and improving? No. But I feel like the end of a hard part of my journey has kind of surfaced, and I'm starting to see the fruits of my labor. And yes, it's been, if you've done the math, I am 34 now, it's been about 10 years of treatment, but various levels of treatment due to pregnancy and breastfeeding, adjusting meds, and everyone's journey is different. Mine's just taking a while. I was chronic with many co-infections, and I've been blessed to have minimal herxing and horrible like reactions to my treatment, if any. Like honestly, herxing with Bartonella has been kind of the most herxing I've done in a long time, if maybe the whole time I've been in treatment, because my provider moves gently through things so that you don't have to necessarily experience some of the, you know, rough parts, if it can be helped. And herxing can be dangerous too. And if you're not familiar with what herxing is, Herxheimer reactions, kind of a heightened detox reaction to die off from treating Lyme and co-infections. But anyway, you can also Google that. You know, everyone's journey is different. Some are much shorter, some are much longer, some are a lifetime. And I'm just prepared to be constantly healing and enjoying the journey along the way. And speaking of that, you may have heard me talking a lot about that catchphrase, enjoy the journey, embracing the journey. I've kind of combined them both to say and enjoy, I'll say it again, to say enjoy and embrace the journey. It's a lot of vowels. Here's why. I wanted to share that, close out this video with that story really quickly. Enjoy the journey is actually a phrase that I did not like come up with, and I would never say I did. It's been around, but it's a phrase that I specifically latched onto in middle school, right before I got my sickest, right before I had to quit life essentially to heal or try to heal. It was a saying that my basketball coach in middle school used. And I told you I was like huge into athletics, and basketball was my main sport, and I was very dedicated to it. I anticipated trying to get scholarships for it and you know, going the distance with my basketball career, whatever that was going to look like, which didn't amount to much because I had to quit or let go of, we're going to say, choose the right language, conscious language, my friends. I had to let go of that piece of my life for a little while to heal. I could not keep up with it. But my coach was wonderful, a wonderful guy. I love him dearly. I have such fond memories of how he shaped my life in a lot of ways. And one way in particular was this phrase he used for our team. Our team was going through a rebuilding of sorts at the time, and his big phrase for us was enjoy the journey, ladies. Enjoy the journey. Even the downs. Of course, the ups are easier to enjoy, but the ups and downs both deserve your enjoyment and your consideration. They're all part of the journey it takes to get there, to get to the goal, to get to the top, whatever. And I just latched onto that phrase for the rest of my life till this point, so much so that I made it a part of my team, my coaching, my health world here, and just adjusted it slightly to say enjoy and embrace the journey. Because part of the enjoyment piece and the journey itself is accepting it for what it is, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, because it's always going to have its ups and downs. It really is. I really feel strongly about the simplicity of that phrase and the meaning behind it. So that is the first time I think that I can remember, at least, that I've shared about the origin of why I've chosen that kind of motto for what I'm doing. But it stuck with me ever since I was a kid and before I even got sick. So it was meant to be a part of my journey, that motto itself. So my friends, I'll leave you with that. May you continue to enjoy and embrace your journey through all that it has to offer you. I vote your healing. Till next time, my friends.